The early 2010s were years of digital explosion, but homes weren't the only places adopting this new technology. There was a strong movement for schools to become more digital, offering students iPads, email addresses, big tech accounts, and of course, tons of EdTech services. It looked like EdTech had only been growing up until COVID, where it hit its peak. But shortly after, it seems like many schools have cut back on it, and I've noticed a newfound push for paper. So what's the deal with EdTech? Now, the first problem I have with EdTech is regarding the privacy aspect. Some EdTech services are quite invasive. In fact, I sometimes wonder which platforms were created to serve as tools for students and which ones were made simply for the purpose of data mining. Now, obviously, each person has the choice to use whatever program they want, no matter how invasive. But what makes the EdTech situation different is that children are having these accounts made for them. They don't have a choice. Their data is being siphoned without their consent from their earliest days. By the time a student is 12, they could be walking around with upwards of 30 various EdTech accounts open for them. And by the time they graduate high school, it might be double that. Many schools will set up their students with a Google account, a Microsoft account, or an Apple ID starting as early as first grade. What makes it even worse is that often, it's impossible for students to delete many EdTech accounts, since a lot of them have a feature where if a teacher made an account for you, the only way to delete it is by contacting that teacher. And what happens to all these accounts after you leave school? They probably just stay open, floating forever. A lot of people complain about the invasiveness of technology nowadays, but I would argue that the people that have it the worst are the youngest of us, the ones that have grown up in a world where they have been mined and cataloged since their earliest days. My second criticism of EdTech is that it's arguably simply too much screens. Back when EdTech started rising in popularity in around 2010, many students didn't actually have a tablet or phone at home. So when schools started giving out iPads, it was novel and cool. But as personal tablets and phones continued to become more and more ubiquitous, the benefits of using iPads at school seemed to dwindle. With kids already spending most of their free time at home staring at a screen, spending 8 more hours a day doing it at school seems like it might just be too much. Is staring closely at a digital screen for a majority of the day harmful for developing eyes and brains? Does it have an effect on the mental well-being of children? I don't know the answers to these questions, but it's something to consider. My final criticism of EdTech is that it can reduce children's self-sufficiency and create an over-reliance on technology and software. Instead of typing everything on a screen, maybe kids should also be working on learning how to type well on a keyboard, or work on their handwriting. Instead of using Google Classroom or Canvas to turn everything in, maybe it's useful to be able to know how to type your work on a word processor, print it out, staple it, and turn it into your teacher by hand. Maybe it's good to be familiar with reading and studying from physical textbooks and writing organized notes. Maybe it's good to learn how to contact your teachers with well-composed emails instead of posting a comment to the class feed. And I know I may seem like a Scrooge, but I'm not against technology, far from it. I just think that in an ironic way, using it too much can sometimes cause children to be less digitally literate. Now that I've gone over the downfalls of EdTech, I'd like to highlight a few of its redeeming qualities, because it's definitely not black and white. One obvious pro of EdTech is that it helps prepare students for the real world. Because whether I like it or not, the fact is that many workplaces implement these same EdTech programs, and getting familiar with these platforms from an early age can give students an advantage. Another benefit of EdTech is that sometimes it really can enhance the school experience and make things more fun, interesting, and cool. One last upside that I've noticed with EdTech is that since everything is recorded, students can export years of digital records of their work. Slideshows, documents, all of it yours to keep. You don't have to store piles of paper in your basement, just a couple of gigabytes on a USB stick of all your work. Similarly, the photos, videos, and other media produced via various EdTech mediums can serve as precious keepsakes of your time in school, memories that kids without the technology never got to capture. The 2010s were the prime days of EdTech, and there's no doubt that it came along with some benefits. But recently, it seems to be in subtle decline. Perhaps some of the cons of EdTech are now more widely understood, and with the advent of consumer-accessible AI, I have a feeling that a lot of EdTech is going to fade out of relevancy, like many of it already has. I hope this video helped explain the many facets of EdTech and got you thinking about your own opinions of it.